All right, everyone, welcome back to season 3, episode 98. So today I'm your host, Arjuna George, former fire chief turned podcaster, author, and coach to the fire service. Today I got a captain and also a president of charity for Fight for Life. Please help me and join Captain Michael Sears to the show.
It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired fire chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. So tell our listeners a little bit about who Captain Sears is and kind of what brought you maybe to the fire service and maybe to this podcast today. Like what's the story behind Captain Sears?
How did we get here? Definitely an unplanned journey, I guess you could say, of how you and I met. Fire service has been in my family for about 5 generations here on the East Coast. As a little guy, much like many people are, he just really wanted to be part of it. And I went to fire school at 18, applied at 19, got in at 20, and it's been a long, sometimes quick, often bumpy road. The last few years really have been probably the most impactful part of my career, where with the, you could say, encouragement of some friends, took a knee at one point. Didn't realize the impact of what my experience in the fire service had been to that point. And I really didn't recognize it myself. So I think, that saying of, we're usually the last ones to know what's going on. At the same time, it was kind of closing in around that 20-year mark, which I've sort of called the 20-year club, where a lot of things come to light for a lot of people in our whole emergency service community, really, as a whole. Struggled, stumbled, had some good people. We were just talking about him a few minutes ago, but Steve Farina was a really good help, and ultimately a few close guys that were right there with me the whole time. But tricky question to start with. I thought a lot of things about the career, and at that point I kind of thought the career might be done, and then I realized that it kind of was just the start of a new direction. So learned a ton, started hearing different terms, and then really understanding what they meant. And I'd say at this point, one of the biggest ones is post-trauma growth. A lot of times we think that the job's going to change us. And it was funny, I was listening to a podcast I did a few years back, and it was like, I wish somebody had called after and said, dude, can you hear what you're saying? Because, it was something to the effect of, this job will change you. And it's like, it can, but I thought the changes were permanent, and they most certainly aren't. So, you mentioned the charity Fight for Life. We started after a good buddy and fellow firefighter, Kyle Curry, took his life. Started that charity with his parents and some friends and some other firefighters, and we've raised about $450,000 to put towards mental health initiatives, and we've spent about $330. And unfortunately, just a couple of weeks ago, we lost Kyle's mom to cancer. So she's a huge loss for our community out here, as she looked at all the firefighters like her own kids. And one of her last wishes that we keep the charity going. And with her husband Rand and the rest of us on the board, we're going to continue to do that, because the work is it's important. To say the least. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Steve Farina, a fellow colleague of both of ours, a mutual friend, amazing fellow, and also a podcast guest on here. And he introduced us kind of through email or text. I'm not sure how it started, but the original, where I heard you originally, I was going on a course. I was actually teaching a workshop, jumping in a little small airplane, one of those 10-seaters or something like that. And I threw on the podcast of you, and it wasn't a fire related podcast, but it was a podcast about your journey. And it might be the one you're referring to, you just listened to. But it was a non-related fire, and I sat there and listened to this podcast for the whole journey, and I honestly had tear kind of coming in my eyes, like, wow, this is a powerful, powerful story. And that's what kind of resonated with me. I was like, I gotta connect with this guy because this guy's, got a story to tell as well as a passion for helping fellow brothers and sisters across North America, right? So
Yeah.
that's where it all started for me, anyways.
Okay, man. Yeah, no,
Yes,
that's a good. I think that was the one I did with my friend Anne, who is
it was Sam. That's
actually a
right.
bit of a teacher and friend and just an all around excellent human being. So it's funny when I preface that type of work because people are interested, and like I've changed a lot. Like if you knew me a few years ago, I was doing my best. Um, but I think like all of us, we could do a little bit better. And it's stepping into something that was really uncomfortable. Definitely things, and I talk as I'm explaining what it is. I get a look from guys, and they're like, what are you talking about?" I'm like, I know, trust me, I made fun of this 3 years ago, and it's still a bit different. But I'm telling you, like it's so worth it, and that's really the embodied component of what I sort of discovered and how I believe it impacts and would land with a lot of people in our community with the work we do.
We're definitely going to dive
Yeah,
into that for sure.
yeah, yeah,
So I want to start off with, I believe you were one of the first in your organization to take a knee and take an OSI leave.
yeah.
Run us through that experience. Like, how was that for you? Was it successful? Was that a good experience? Was that a poor experience? What would be your thoughts on that?
It was, yeah, like to sort of start where it was. I knew that something was up, but I just didn't really know what to do about it. And I was walking, we were with our task force and we were on a hurricane deployment up in a different part of the province here, and was walking with a couple buddies, and they sort of had said, like, what do you think? What do you think you need? And I was like, oh, I got some vacation coming. I'll take a couple shifts and maybe take a few sick days. And they're going, is that the advice you'd give someone else? I was like, no. Why is that the advice you're giving yourself? And I really didn't have an answer. Um, Sort of thought about it of saying like, I just didn't think that I'd done enough or seen enough or been part of it enough. And, it was, I think where most of us don't really get feedback, from our superior officers, and not just our department, but like across the board, you kind of don't really know where you stand in a lot of ways. So pretty much I'd say gave like a bit of permission, like, dude, you've been there, you've done it, it's time. It's like, oh, okay. So you step into the dark of what there really wasn't a lot of people that I knew that were open about any of this stuff. And I remember I walked into my chief, and I was involved in the union then, as I still am now. And his reply was, I said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" He's like, "Yeah, what's up?" I said, actually, he said, "Yeah, sure. What are you going to yell at me about now?" It's like nothing. And I just went in and looked at him straight up. I was like, "Dude, I'm not doing good." And he was really, really supportive. He didn't make anything awkward or weird. Then the paperwork side of things started. And that's where part of my advocacy is now, is looking at going, how can we make this a lot more seamless so that when a member finally says, I need help, that we help them. We don't make them do more work. So the paperwork side of things, not super great, which is common that I've heard other members where they've have to describe when, where, and how they were injured. I'm aware of one member that was going through it, and it actually, the person that was doing the intake, it was one of their friends that was being described in the actual call. So it's kind of looking at the sensitivities of the injury, where I guess actually getting people to see it as an injury instead of a weakness. And realizing that it's an injury and that you have to heal it. So it's okay. So what do we do? And I met Steve probably a few weeks before I went off work at convention in Ottawa, and he had posted a YouTube clip of the resiliency program that him and the association out there had started. So of course, like anyone, I would call and say, "Hey man, I got a guy that's interested in their program." And then he's asking questions, and I was just like, "Steve, I'm just going to cut the shit, man. It's me." He's like, "Oh, whoa. Well, I can get you out here in 3 weeks. Can you get here?" I got basically had a cancellation last minute. And when I was going out there, I remember thinking to myself, did I just screw myself? Is this the right decision? Um, am I ever going to get back to work? And then you start running down the rabbit hole of like, geez, like at the time, I was like, well, what are people going to say? And then pretty quickly, I was like, I don't care because this has nothing to do with anybody other than me. And when we started the work out there, it was totally different than anything I'd experienced. Um, and I realized on day one, hour two, with the 7 other guys in the room, and I'm looking around going, why aren't we taught this stuff from the start? And it was like basic communication, what they start you off with. I can't tell all the secrets because they don't want you to. Um, but yeah, like the basic intro to things. And then as you get going, it's like, oh wow, oh wow, there's a lot here. And then, the way that they roll you through, it's incredible. So, you know, the paperwork side of things wasn't very good. Um, the everybody gets busy after a while, but when the phone calls stop and then people stop showing up, it's pretty lonely. Um, and I really got to thank a few of the guys that were there, some family members that were always close by. But really, if you're in that spot, learning how to sit in that solitude and be comfortable with it and sort of let things pop up as they are, because that's really, I'd say, the gift of that quietness, that solitude, that tranquility. And it's just having the patience to kind of look and listen. The other thing that I didn't realize, I was out walking one day after being off, and I'm looking around. It's like the trees started looking different, the grass looked different, the sky. And I'm going, turns out that's what happens when your nervous system starts to function again and you catch up on sleep and your body's starting to do things instead of just being in, kind of a autonomous state of just disconnection. So um, then I started reading. That's how I ended up stumbling into through a friend to Anne Brube's work. And I started reading her book. It was the first book as a 38-year man or 38-year-old that I'd ever, 38, 39, whatever I was at the time. I
Yeah.
never read a book cover to cover.
Yeah. Good.
And I felt like it was written for me.
Mm.
But it was definitely a book that I wouldn't have picked up on my own. And I never would have thought that I'd be sitting in a room with like 60 women uh, at a embodied facilitation workshop. Um, then I started linking dots, listening to what I heard from the members in BC, listening to these women in this group, understanding about connection, understanding about letting our body work the way that it's designed to instead of fighting it. And I would say like a few more months of healing, writing, sleeping, um, and just being super open about a lot of things. That's what got me back to work. Um, interesting things that sort of transpire when people don't understand how to reintegrate somebody. And like, as you said, like I definitely wasn't the first guy to go off because of psych or behavior issues, but the classifications would have been different. So a lot of members would have gone off on LTD and just sort of disappeared, where I filed an OJI for occupational stress. So I was the first one to go through that process. Um, it's getting better slowly, but when you're dealing with third parties and insurance companies, they see things the way that they see it, and then we've got to help them see it the way that they need to. So reintegration wasn't great. There just wasn't really much there. So it was sort of show up and get on the truck and off you go. Um, and then there
Wait,
was
so day one back in the fire service, you were back on the truck.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So show up at
What would have
7:30.
been different for you? What would have been the better outcome? Like, what would you have preferred to have day one coming back from this journey
Well,
you're on?
yeah, I'm familiar with some other departments like police and fire where, you show up and the first little while, it's like, how are you even in the office or the station or the firehouse? And maybe you're there until noon and you don't go on calls. You're in the station, you're in uniform, you're doing the routine. Um, if I hadn't felt ready when I came back. Um, I'm not sure where it would have gone. I didn't really question where I was. It was mostly like the biggest thing I had was, would I freeze when something significant was happening? Um, I think pretty realistic concern to have. Um, it was like a very, very small concern, but I didn't. Um, but yeah, like an actual program, like again, people are busy. But it took quite a while for me to get one of my bosses to come out and see me. Um, and I think it's nothing personal, but I just look and go, I don't think they necessarily understood um, return from a psych injury. Like I almost lost my station assignment based on mental health. And then I had to file a complaint with our union as mental health's a protected group, as you know, um, which was difficult. Definitely lost a couple friends over that. And in hindsight, I'd have done it again because I looked at it and said, it's not a lot of the stuff while I was going through it. It really wasn't necessarily just about me. It was every other person that's going to come behind me. And when someone comes back from a psych injury, especially in our world, trying to explain to people that I was better coming back than I was ever while I was there before, that I was stronger, more able, more capable, just better in every aspect. But it was like they didn't believe me. So, I'm sure there's still some people that are looking at me kind of sideways at times going, how is he? But they don't ask mostly. So, how is he? He is feeling very good, you know.
What have you noticed about yourself since maybe you took that knee and you said, I need a timeout, I need to
Yeah.
work on myself. What have you noticed in yourself? Is there anything you could kind of pinpoint that's like, wow, this is really who I am?
I'd say, yeah, like there's a lot. I would say like the general growth side of it is it's yeah, like everybody wants to be liked and to have good friends. And ultimately I looked at it and it was like, what kind of friend am I being to myself? So one of the biggest things that I notice is how I treat myself, how I talk to myself. And I'm still working at it. People that are close to me know that sometimes when I'm tired, I need a reminder to maybe be a little more patient with myself or a little bit more grace. But it's overall, it's the relationship with me and how I feel. And I used to feel so much tension. Um, like I think I'd said a few times, but like I couldn't feel my arms. Like I thought that, like I felt like I had like concrete in my arms where they were just kind of dull and numb and heavy. Um, the body reactions to things, all of those, I would say, like frantic kind of pieces where I'd heard about it and been like, oh, this is just me now. This is what PTSD feels like. I didn't realize what anxiety was because, again, no one explained it. Um, and when I did get diagnosed with both of those things, I still didn't, I looked at it a way that I'd heard versus a way of like, we show up to a house fire, but IAP is just a diagnosis. So what do you do next? You don't say, hey, the house is on fire. We're going to lose the whole city. It's like, the house is on fire. Let's get to work. PTSD, anxiety, these are those things. Learn what they are, understand how to process what you've got, and then grow from it. So, really, I look at it now as like it's kind of diagnosis isn't something necessarily to dread. But when you do see those words and read on paper who somebody thinks that you are and how you present, it's a start. So, back to your question, like how I feel, like the biggest change is just how I feel in every aspect of my life. And it's really brought a lot of confidence instead of, well, what if someone says something? What if? Who cares?
There's
It's
yeah.
impersonal. How do you feel about yourself? So, it's a long road and a lot of work. But, back to that initial thing when I was at the BC program watching the sun come up, going, did I just make a huge mistake? The best choice I've ever made for myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that program is incredible. The Loon Lake Resiliency Program. Yeah, yeah, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish we could clone all those guys that are out there running it.
Ah, amazing.
Jesse,
Amazing.
David,
Yeah.
Duncan.
Shout out to them. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure. Yeah.
boys. Incredible.
So going through this PTSD diagnosis, which I think is an injury, not necessarily a diagnosis, in my own personal opinion. I like to use
Mm,
PTSI or even traumatic stress.
yeah.
Do you think there was elements of political or moral injury or administrative betrayal as
Oh
part
yeah.
of that, or was it
Yeah. Like,
simply trauma?
no, it's all of those things.
Mhm.
And I talk about it now, and it's like, post traumatic, whatever it is. It's like
Totally.
semantics of everything is just going, um, was that the biggest part of what was going on with me? I, hard to say, but I definitely think the moral injury and the organizational betrayal side of things, like, we were facilitating a workshop the other day, and that came up with someone describing it, but they didn't know the term organizational betrayal. And that was more impactful to them than what they were actually talking about from operations. Um, I kind of look at them and think that they're a bit of a force multiplier, and if you don't start, wringing out the sponge, so to speak, then it's sort of hard to tell what's compounding on what. Um, I kind of think that the two of those, they're equal, maybe even greater. When you see something that happens and it's wrong, and then you see the impact of it landing, and then it has an impact of the overall outcome of an operation. It's all three things involved there. And then where we don't sit and talk about it and process it afterwards as much as we could, um, it just gets stuck there. And,
The
even
body.
with, yeah, it's gets stuck in your body. And then too, it's like, the reality of it as well is like for anyone that's gone back to work or about to go back to work, the knowledge that the next call you go on can be a new injury. And like to your point, it is an injury. So like, you break your leg, you're off work, you heal, you go back to work, you could slip and fall and break your leg again in a different spot. So it's really, I believe, looking at the impact of the operational side as well as the organizational side. And then if you're in a leadership role, it's how your decisions impact somebody's morality and their values. We've got a lot of, um, you see it across North America is like, vision, values, and ethics, and a lot of buzzwords like honor and courage that mean something to some people and sometimes not so much to others. But there's a real impact when you say that you're a, trusting, honorable person, and then you do something that's not. So if you're in that leadership role, it's understanding what you're doing and how the impact of all of your decisions lands on the people that look up to you. So
I couldn't agree more. I honestly, well, I experienced it personally myself, so I know firsthand kind of how powerful moral injury and administrative betrayal can be as a fire chief.
yeah.
I felt that. So I honestly think it's, yeah, like a force multiplier, like you
Oh
said.
yeah.
It's everything else we see in the fire service and emergency services in general, compound that with moral injury, administrative betrayal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, what do you do with it?
Mhm.
Once you acknowledge it, uh, you could dwell on it. But that's the thing where I look at this stuff and go, it's your choice what you want to do with all of these experiences. Um, I've been able to pay it forward and help quite a few people go through it themselves and come out the other side. And then, you see a few people that they're still choosing to stay injured as like an identity. And, if that's you and you're stuck in that identity, then just know that you don't have to be. Um, Not you, but whoever's maybe listening to this. I'm sure there's probably going to be at least a couple people listening to this thing, eh?
For sure. Yeah, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be that burnout guy either, right? But
No,
I know it's
no.
an important message to share, and just like
Yes.
you don't want to be the PTS guy, right?
No, man. And it's
Yeah.
like, and that's how I look and go, it's a part of us and our history of what we've experienced in fire services. And I think being open about it, um, and just really truthful and honest. And again, there's nothing in anything that I say, it's not meant to be personal. It's not meant to be, a sling of mud at anybody. It's just like, it's my experience, what I went through, and only offering it as perspective, whether you're going through it or if you're in one of those positions to help someone through it, or if your decisions are having impacts. It's kind of question like what is the impact of me in the sphere in this community? What's its impact on me? What do I want? You know, there's some people that, without knowing that it's possible to shift and pivot, and um, like I'm just thinking of one buddy that thought completely everything was done. No more joy, no more happiness, no more fire department. And then, got through some programming, and then came out of it going, I trusted you with it. You were right. And then, it's great to see them come sort of back to who they always were. And it's really cool to see their family see them back as the person that they used to know. And then in like a bit of a better way too. So super possible, man. Like it's endless. And it's like,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, I rolled my eyes and went like, what do you mean you can be anything you want? Well, yeah, you can. It's up to you.
Mhm. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, you're kind of, I would say, a mental health ambassador, just like Steve and I. What would be one thing that you would say if we could fix this in the fire service, we would have healthier,
Yeah.
happier, more efficient firefighters that retire healthy as well?
Yeah. Foundation. Um, Having people that understand why it's important for, say, like if you're a rookie coming through or you're in recruit training, having somebody that can explain to them why it's important that they pay attention. The other big thing that I look at is resourcing. So, um, workshops, retreats, I think they should be codified in every collective agreement and funded. And one of the conversations I have a lot, like right now, is what we're paying for in the charity. Um, Programming runs between $500 and 15,000. And I'm seeing the impact of it getting people back to work. And what we're starting to see is a shift from some members that are going, I'm not necessarily critical. Like if someone else needs it more than me, it's like, I want you to go now before you really need it. So it's the upfront front loading of things and then understanding that it is an injury. So like I kind of look at it and go, how can we get people to enjoy this career and be more fulfilled? And also when it comes to organizations, is why should I pay for that? Well, it's going to lower their overall costs. And a lot of it does get into dollars and cents. So it's people, but there's a price tag attached to members in this world. And I think when organizations start to see that if they fund programming, workshops, retreats, those types of things versus paying to have a member off work, plus the insurance premiums, plus, they'll save millions in the long run. And, part of me hates that there's got to be the business case side of it, but that's the reality. So I think early resourcing, and if you don't have it funded, try to fundraise it, try to create, we created Fight for Life. Um, and it's really helping people fight for their own life at times. So, to me, it's the programming and the understanding and just, I thought stigma was gone. Turns out it's still lurking. And we got to get rid of that shit.
What would you say the newest member joining the fire service? Because when I talk to members who are 1, 2, 3 years in,
Yeah.
the thought of trauma and stress and burnout and all that is like, oh, that's way too in the future. It's never going to happen to me because I'm
Yeah.
so green, so fresh. I got so much energy.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
I kind of look at it this way of going, and I don't know if I came up with this on my own or if I heard it somewhere, I'm not sure. I'm not taking credit for it, but I share it anyways. So I talk now and say, like, you picture like one of those big foam sponges, and it has a function and it has a purpose. Um, and as you go around mopping stuff up, eventually that sponge is going to get full. And if you don't wring it out, it just gets saturated and then it just smears shit everywhere. So trying to get and say, like, will the sponge dry out on its own? Yeah. But if you're going from call to call to call, and then you just went through a divorce, and then you had something happen, you lost a friend, and this and this and this, that's going to be that saturation's coming quick. And if you don't wring it out and you're getting a lot of action and a lot of things in your life, you're going to get full. Like we know it. And the wisdom of sharing it is huge. And any recruit that's coming in, if they choose to not listen to it, again, that's their choice. It's not personal to me, but ultimately we'll be there to pick them up at the end. And they'll probably look and go, "Oh, I got saturated, didn't I?" Yeah, you did. And I see it. It's typically, for what I've seen, and especially doing peer support since 2012, 7 to 8, 10 years on average. And then members will sort of limp along, go through a divorce, or turn into kind of a bitter, disconnected, cynical uh, shadow of themselves, because that's what they think they have to do, and that's what being salty is all about. And then around 20 years, there's a huge, huge change. Um, the change that I see recently is people in that 20-year mark that sort of made their bones and they don't really have anything to prove. They're being open about this stuff. So, like, if that person that's coming in that's really, really new is interested in, yeah, you want to go to fires and you want to go to all these things. One of the old guys that I worked with at the start is just like, careful what you wish for, because you're going to get more of it than you ever want. Hindsight's wonderful, but it's like, what do we do with it once we have that experience? Share it.
I love it. Yeah, you talked about being vulnerable and authentic before. It's like, I think I've talked about that several times. It's like, it's a superpower. We can share our stories if we can be vulnerable with each other.
Yeah.
And when I say vulnerable, it's another word for authentic, being your true self versus somebody else, right? Or not telling your full truth, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And and too, like, am I guarded of some of the things that I say? Yeah, because I still work for somewhere and I don't want to get myself in too much trouble.
For
But,
sure.
and that's where I mean is it's like, again, I'm very, very lucky to work where I do. I love my city and my department. Um, like anywhere, you're somewhere for a long time, you see opportunities for improvement, and sometimes you can help nudge that. And that's what I'm trying to do on this, on the mental health, behavioral health, wellness side of things. It's
You're
never
doing
really
it.
want, yeah, oh geez,
You're
man.
doing
It's
it.
like, it's funny talking to a couple guys going, I never really set out to be like, I want to be that guy that's leading the charge, but it was like, never really back down from a fight.
But also, I bet you also had ambitions to be a leader.
Yeah.
And you are. You're doing that just in a different
Yeah.
field versus
Yeah.
maybe the fire ground, right? So,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's it. So who knows? Who knows where everything will go, or even where my career will go, or how long I'll be in. But while I'm there, the rest of it, it's I just think that we're supposed to look out for each other. And I had a guy kind of chirp me a while back. He's like, "You like the romantic idea of what the fire service used to be." And I go, "Well, it can be whatever I want it to be. It's my world. You're just somebody in it." So I still believe that we really should be looking out for each other. We should have each other's backs. And then really when we're talking to the elected officials or the decision makers, it's explaining to them what we do, the impact of it, that we still want to continue to do it. But it's like, what do we need? What do I need? Well, when it comes to a lot of like little small things, getting them to see that it's in the best interest to invest in the people, uh, because ultimately without the people, there's nothing there, just trucks and hose.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of a phrase I use often is I want to, my dream is to humanize the fire service again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of my dream. And I don't know how that happens, or maybe it's a little tidbits here and there, but yeah, I'd love to see that before I take my last breath.
Yeah, I think it's changing, man. Like you see it
It
a
is.
lot
It
of a
is.
lot of the stuff, tactics. There's a lot of yeah, I kind of take a little cut of it here and there, but I call it kind of like boutique firefighting of, the flash and Gucci stuff, which is, it really doesn't matter. It's just getting members interested, instead of showing up and punching the clock and leaving. But I think it takes all of us doing stuff that is a little unconventional, and you know how much the fire service loves change, right? So yeah,
But
but
talking about unconventional, I want to
man,
dive into Anne's work. So share a little bit about that experience of what you got out of that, because I'm assuming most listeners maybe have never heard of this, or maybe even the book. Maybe share the book title as well.
yeah. So the book is The Burnout Antidote, which as I was reading it, the title, I feel like it changes as you change of what it means. And even looking at burnout, a lot of this stuff, it's got a negative connotation. But looking at going, so like my burnout, how did I earn it? Give, 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 and I didn't take enough for me in any aspect. What a jerk, hey? Um, but when it comes to embodied processing, um, what's embodied? So I kind of look at it, there's so much to it, but like the basic of it, I look at it and say there's responding and reacting. And when we're on a fire ground, you can think of, you're looking at a building that's on fire. This, do this, do this, do this task. Most people say the more chaotic it is, the more comfortable and calm I feel. What's happened, what I believe, my theory is you're sort of unintentionally fully embodied at that point because you're responding to everything in front of you without thinking. It's once you get up in your head and your ego and you start reacting to things, or you start to follow something that, well, I saw somebody else do this, so that means that this reaction matches that. So like, insane fireground, totally calm and tranquil. Go home and your kid knocks a glass of milk over and absolutely lose your mind. It's milk. Just mop it up. Doesn't matter. But you saw somebody that made a big deal out of it. So then we start to do that. So it's starting to kind of look at react versus respond. When you're on scene and you're trusting what people say, I'm trusting my gut. Really? It feels like this is the next thing to do, or I felt like we needed to get out of there. Okay, so that's embodied. You're listening to a different part of what your body's trying to tell you and teach you. Right down to emotions. So when you start to say, discuss something that is a story that, brings up tears. And a lot of times you'll see members, jam it, and the joke, jam it down, jam it down. Well, what happens when you don't? So I can think of a young fellow that we had that choked on attack, and we got there, bad scene. Couldn't talk about it afterwards. And this is sort of where some of the things that Anne was teaching really started helping. And I'm going, okay, there's a lot here. I couldn't talk. I had a lump in my throat. Understanding that that's a key indicator of like words not said. I felt a lot of pulse in my chest, which is where love and compassion are. So pretty much one of the things that we started doing for that and others would be like, okay, so where do you feel that? Chest, throat. Put your hands there, light pressure. And I remember she said, what would you say to him if he was standing right here in front of you right now? So I started talking as if this little guy was here in front of me. And the tears and the sweat and the shaking that I would have tried to subside, that's what our body's doing to get rid of the energy that's attached to the memory. So when I look at this and go, comparatively, exposure therapy, first person, what are you doing? I'm walking down the hallway. I'm putting my boots on. I'm getting in the truck. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. When I was doing that, I didn't have any response. And the gentleman who was working with me at the time was like, where's the tears, man? Like, where? And I'd walk out of there and crash. Because the difference between being embodied and not, all in my head, not, it was confusing. So I'm looking there going, how do I process these things? How do I get this stuff out? I was always sort of teased for like, you wear your heart on your sleeve, you're too sensitive, super sensitive, very emotional person. But that to me isn't a bad thing. So when looking at embodied processing, it also brings in, meditation, which nobody ever really explained to me. And I can remember the first bunch of times I tried it, I was just tired. I want to fall asleep. Well, that's because I was exhausted. So once you start listening to what shows up and really having, a pretty incredible, eye-opening meditation one day where, some images showed up and it felt like I was being suspended, like held in the air. And afterwards kind of talking and going like, understanding it more and then not being afraid of it, but also not doubting it. And that's that part too, is it's like we get in our ego of, I need to understand this intellectually to justify it to myself because of what I heard some other people talk about this stuff. when I started moving into more of an acceptance of going, this stuff is really happening. Um, I know I'm not crazy, but I can trust how I feel. And also, the more you start to connect with, you know, I would say sort of like you're, I guess, grounded for easy, but like a centered kind of approach of where you're at. When something shows up, the beautiful, or I guess beautiful part that I see with this embodied processing is it really brings in like emotional and spiritual intelligence, and not necessarily in like a religious way, but that energetic piece. And that's where I was going with this of going, I feel a lot of the stuff that bogs us down is the energy attached to the memory. So if you can use your body to process that energy and it takes the power away from that memory, then it becomes freeing. It becomes impersonal, just like just like the hamburger that I had for lunch. I remember it,
Yeah.
but it holds nothing. So and then you move into like personal, impersonal. So, embodied processing to me has been, it's a life changer. And one of the other things Anne does is like autopoetic facilitating. So it's like you're the artist and the canvas at the same time. So you get to create. You get to create the life you want. And one thing that really resonated with me was in the fire service. It doesn't necessarily lend to being creative. It lends to being a critical thinker. So if you can be a creative critical thinker, and let go of some convention and trust that there's something else out there that can work for you, to me, the growth is infinite. And the more of these workshops or practices that you bring into your day to day really kind of accelerates your growth, accelerates who you are as a person. And like I said, it is stuff that I 100% was super uncomfortable with, made fun of, and I was wrong. And I offer it as like, if anyone's curious about this stuff, it may work for you, it may not, but it's something that really changed my life completely. And it's, Anne and I created and co-facilitated our first embodied workshop for firefighters back in November. And we're going to continue to go down that road and sort of explore what we want to do with our friendship and with our skill set. And ultimately, it's not pushing it on anybody, but openly sharing it for people that are interested.
Love it. Oh, it
Yeah,
deeply resonates with me. That's for sure. I pretty much everything you said there is like, yep, 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 yep. And the whole creative piece is like, that's as I found as a training officer, I could flex that muscle a little bit.
yeah,
But when I turned to a deputy chief, fire chief, my creativity just plummeted to zero pretty much.
yeah, yeah,
And that was a huge impact on my mental health, was not being creative, right?
yeah.
Big time. And then being in the body is so critical. So what would you suggest to somebody who's trying, like, okay, meditation, I heard so many great amazing benefits of this, how
Yeah.
do I start doing this? Or what would you suggest to somebody to, because you said you didn't really understand meditation prior to doing it, so how would
No.
you
It was all Yeah, it
share
was all
it?
buzzwords too. Like it was stuff like, oh, just ground yourself. Well, what's that mean?
Yeah,
How do I
totally.
do it? Why should I? I don't have time for that. Well,
Just
it can
relax.
be, well, yeah, just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Why
Yeah.
didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
I'd say start off small and expect nothing. Like have no expectations and just give yourself a bit of a time of saying, all right, well, how much time do I have? Because everyone seems to think that this stuff takes 4 and 5 hours of your day. It can take 20 minutes. It can take 5 minutes. It could take 2 hours. It's up to you. Um, how I would say or suggest meditation is try a few different guided ones. There's a pile out there. And if you don't like what you're finding, just keep looking. And then if you can't find something that you like as a guided meditation, if you can find, um, I find breath work really helps for me. Just if I can focus on my breath, again, tons of different ways to breathe. Um, and it's funny when I talk about the breath piece because I find most people breathe just enough that they don't pass out. If you think of
100%.
like shallow, short breaths
Oh
versus
yeah.
if you've done some breath work,
Mhm.
your body just starts to change. So the breath connects you to your body. And a lot of the things that I believe that are stored in your body, when you connect with your body with breath, those things will start to move. And if you just sit, you could have your eyes open or closed, sit comfortably, sit in a spot that's quiet, connect with your breath. Your body will start, you'll know, your body will just start to feel more relaxed or um, less busy. And then if something comes up, that's what your meditation brought you. So things, what do you do with it then? Up to you. You can talk about it. You can write about it. And when I say like write, it's, guys go, you know, sit down and go like, dear diary. It's like, no, you meathead. It's like, but look at it and go, what popped up? Well, this thing. Okay. Is it a person? Is it a thing? Is it an experience? You can write a note as if you're writing a letter to a person. You can write it out as, I wish that I had said this. You can write it out of going, hey, I'm just thinking about this and I'm not really sure why this came up today. Just trust your hand and let it go. I can almost guarantee you'll be shocked at some of the stuff that comes out on the paper. Then you can go for a walk, let it marinate, maybe do something, uh, talk to a friend, talk to a coach, talk to a clinician, and just say, listen, here's this thing that popped up in my meditation. I just really want to talk about it, or I just want to be heard, or what's your advice, or how does this sound to you? So it's set the table for yourself so that you get back what you'd like. The only way you can do that is to tell somebody what you need.
Love
But if
that.
you understand what you need first, then you can share it with other people.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah, I went through an experience where I wrote a letter to my dad, and I didn't have to actually ever tell him what I wrote down.
Mhm.
I probably could have, but I chose to write it down, and that kind of just lifted that off my shoulders.
No, but like that's super huge because like once you process something and you write it out or you speak it out, it's up to you what you do with it. You don't have to share it with anyone. You don't. There's some stuff that I want to, some stuff I don't. But ultimately, it's you having discernment over what it is you want to do. Anne's going to be right happy when so watches this because it's discernment's an Anne word for sure.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
So how
Um,
did you connect with Anne to start with?
really good friend of mine from high school,
Okay.
Rachel McDonald. She's a wonderful, incredible human being that just, lots of care and compassion. And she knew Anne. I'm not entirely sure how they met. Um, but talking to Rach and just saying like, hey, I'm wanting to take better care of myself. I'm wanting to do that. And it's like she would listen, she'd listen, she'd listen. She's like, you're gonna figure it out. And then when I sort of started describing more about what I was going through, she'd asked if I'd really seen much of Anne's work. And at the time I hadn't. So bringing Anne, I guess meeting Anne, and then what we were doing was discussing her coming in and doing a workshop with our peer support team, kind of with the autopoetic embodied work. And through that, she had left some books that we bought some books through the charity. And that's when I started reading Burnout. So it's sort of, I'd met her, sat through one of her small workshops for, it was a half day that we did with the peer team. And then, yeah, I'd just gotten back from BC at that point. So it was kind of like those guys worked wonders out there with, um, you could say thawing me out. Um, so once I was able to sit with Anne, the concepts and what she was doing, I was right there and ready to receive. And I say thawing out because like Jesse's one of the facilitators in BC, and we sit in a circle there, and he kind of thinks, or he's got this theory where he says, I picture there's like an imaginary fire in the middle, and I've set the chairs out, and members just sort of come in out of the dark from all these different corners and sit down and warm up. And he said, with me specifically, he goes, you were out there way too long and you were frozen. And now that you've come in and thawed up, he's like, pain only hurts. Like frostbite hurts when the feeling comes back. And he said, you know, your body's been shut down for so long that now that it's starting to warm up, doesn't know what to do. So like let it shake, let it do its things, let it warm up. So by the time I met Anne, you know, I was kind of thawed out and function was back and I was ready for that work. So it's like, you know, if you're interested in it and you're trying some of this stuff and it's not really landing, just ask yourself like, am I frozen? And if you are, you can thaw out.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a great visual because that's 100% how you feel at that moment, right? You feel frozen, stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it feels permanent.
Mm.
And I just keep coming back to it is so not permanent. And the more and more that I do this with other people, especially people that are willing to let go of all of the things that they've been holding on to, it's incredible to watch other people sort of thaw out and warm up and function and man, just like live. Like seeing the light come back in people's eyes is really cool.
That's what brings me joy now, right?
Yeah.
So out of the fire service, but still very connected, and that's what brings
Yeah.
me joy is seeing
Are
that
you ever
change,
really out?
shift, right?
Kind
No,
of like
I'm
the
well. Look
it's
at my
kind of
background; it's
yeah, I was
100%.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like the mob, man.
yeah.
You never get out.
It's in your blood for sure. It's in
Yeah.
your blood. So with all the gifts, and I'll say that as a thing, gifts that you got through this journey.
Yeah.
What are you keeping in your wellness box now to keep yourself on track? And what's in your wellness box day to day? What are you doing for Michael?
Yeah, like I think too, it's a constant, you know, trial and error. How much bandwidth do I have? How much am I doing? How much can I do? What do I want to do? So it's still I still look at it. It's still really early on in my, you know, I've got new legs and I'm learning how to walk kind of life. Um, but it's like a toddler, man. Like you're gonna bump into the coffee table here and there, and it's to me, it's I'm trying different things. Some people think I've got too much on my plate again, but I'm doing it with the knowing of I just want to see where I'm at. I want to see where my capacity and my function is and what I like and what I don't like. And I was having a conversation with a friend before I got on here, and it's just like some things just don't feel enjoyable anymore. I've changed. It's not anyone else. It's not the thing itself. It's just so it's recognizing like sometimes things don't fit. But in my wellness box, sleep, hydration, huge. I really try to focus on those as best I can. Really hard still being active duty and shift work and um, but to combat that, it's like, well, how do I switch into a sleep mode? So, you know, feet up against the wall, different breathing techniques, really kind of switches, I think, from like that sympathetic operating system into parasympathetic. So the more I understand that, the more I can be, um, I think the more I can observe where I'm at the moment. But like morning time, I love getting up, doing some mobility exercises, a cup of coffee on the deck, watching the sun come up. Um, Through the day, trying to stay connected with breath and just listening to what my body's saying. Evening times, I love walking, literally watching the sun come up and watching the sun go down is a goal.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, man. And
That's cool.
like mixing in some meditation, some stretching. Like I just find the stretching and mobility stuff really, really helps with everything.
Mhm.
You know,
For sure.
still regularly in therapy with my doc, Carol McGinnis. She's awesome.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so it's like leaning into what I know is there. We've got some great friendships, some really good family members that are close by. And ultimately, I think one of the other big things is just recognizing when it's time for solitude. Like it's not being reclusive, um, but it's just like it just need the peace and quiet
For
wherever
sure.
that is.
Yeah.
So
A little recharge.
yeah, and then um, not like selfishly or even if it is selfish, who cares? But it's like
Mhm.
just that I talked earlier about, you know, grace is like give myself some grace, cut yourself some slack. Um, and then one of the big things, man, is just recognizing like, hey, it's 9:30 at night. Maybe it's time to slow down instead of just I got 4 more hours of stuff to do. It's like who else is out like, you know, picking weeds at 2 in the morning? So it's like I would do that stuff just not really paying attention. So a lot more, just being more present. Yeah.
And prioritizing yourself for once.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
like, why am I so tired? It's 2 a.m, man. You're out working in the yard on something, or like just
Yeah.
go to bed.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think our people are very, very quickly over medicated. And, I keep hearing this term treatment resistant. Um, Looking at how the modalities and treatments have been developed, how little we've been speaking about things as a collective, maybe the academia is the issue, not us. I had a guy ask me the other day, he's like, how medicated are you? It's like 0. It's like, how's that possible? And I told him all the things that I've just been telling you that I'm doing, you know, and
Natural.
I'm not bashing meds at all. I'm just saying, I think that, yeah, you can accomplish quite a bit without them.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, there's a time and place for them, but it shouldn't be
100%.
something a crutch for the rest of your life, right? There is
Yep.
natural ways to combat a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one question that you wish I asked you that I haven't
Ooh.
asked you?
Huh. I think it'd be like maybe somewhere along like, what's the point? Like, why should somebody do this for themselves? Take care of themselves. Um, I can think of, well, I was sitting at this table and my mom was here and my ex-girlfriend, and she said, what was it like watching him go through that? And my mom has been nursing for over 40 years. She was a Halifax police officer for 25, ran 2 careers, busy, busy lady. And then she also worked with a lot of people in the same field as me. So when she said, I saw what was happening to him and just sort of watched him kind of go. Um, and then she said, what's it like seeing him now? And my mom really just kind of looked and said, it's nice to have my son back.
Oh,
So I think if you're questioning, like, am I there? Have I done enough? Have I seen enough? Why wait until you're there? And the benefit of doing this stuff, it's, yeah, you get your life back and everybody in your life gets you back.
that's powerful. And I think that kind of goes into the final thought of how do we retire in a healthy mindset? Any
Mm.
thoughts there of how we leave this fire service that we've put so much, soul, heart, blood, sweat, tears into and leave in a healthy way?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because I see, again, like it's the new kids coming in and they get a bit of a foundation of, who are you? Like uh, a lot of them will say like this is, as much as I hate it, it's like, this is just a job to me. In a sense, not having it be the complete identity. And if you're moving into retirement and it happens quick, like I look back and go, like, where did 22 years go? And, I've seen some guys stick around a really long time. And I think with doing some work on yourself, if you're in your last 5 or 10 years and starting to look and go, this is something that I love, this is something that's a huge part of me, but this is who I am. I think if we start looking at as much as foundational coming through and resourcing along the way, I think if you're in your last 5 to 10, you've really got to start the transition of what comes after. They give, I don't want to be the one that spoils the secret, but all those gold bars are all made up, and the uniforms, they want them back. So
Totally.
it's like, yeah, so who are we without them? Who were we before we had them? And, to enjoy a good, happy, healthy retirement, I believe those are some questions that need to be asked, and the work never stops. We see it as, some people will say, I didn't realize how important that kitchen table was every 4 days. And then when the kitchen table's not there, things start to kind of come up. So, I was chatting with a retiree the other day and he goes, I don't know why now it's coming up. I said, because you're sleeping and your nervous system is functioning again and your body's starting to try to move these things. What do you want to do about it? So, I think that the happy, healthy retirement, when people are being honest about it, I think that there's a lot there for those people to experience, but, and I'd encourage them completely, just, the same courage that you had when you went into burning buildings for all those years, a little bit of courage to go inside yourself, um, if you want to. And if you don't, that's okay. right? So like, yeah, man, I just want to see everybody enjoy their time in service and make it to a safe, healthy retirement, and to be a drain on the pension plans as long as they can. You paid
Yeah,
for it, enjoy
yeah,
it.
100%.
So I don't know, man. What do you think about that?
Oh, I 100%. I think it's something we got to start, probably 10 years out, honestly, of
Yeah,
working on ourselves, working on, and that's all I'm all about self-leadership now. That's kind of what burnt me out was a lack of self-leadership, not leading myself to lead others better.
yeah,
So I feel like I led my crews well, but I think I could have done, or I could do a way better job if I went back today, only
yeah,
because I know myself better.
yeah,
I know my nervous system. I know how to calm myself down, how to amp myself up if I need to. I feel more confident, honestly, in my own skin,
yeah.
just by going through the hard work over the last 4 or 5 years, right? So, 100%. And it's got to start early. If you do it when the day you retire, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle.
It's tough.
And the biggest thing that I found is have something outside of the fire service.
Yeah,
When I was in the fire service, almost 25 years, I didn't have any friends that were outside the fire service. I didn't have any gatherings that I went to. Every party I went to was fire related. Every conversation we had was fire related. So when I left the fire service and started branching out to different, in the coaching world, talking with people who are in totally different realms of life, I was like, wow, this is so fresh and exciting to hear about other things outside of fire, because fire can be consuming, right? So it's nice to have some hobbies, some activities, some friends that are outside of the fire world.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that identity thing, man. Like it's and it
Mm.
it I think it works in any aspect too of something that people kind of cling to at times. Um,
It's so easy to, right? You
yeah,
got the
it's
shirts, you got the badges, you got the
oh
the magazines,
yeah,
everything's out there. It just makes you feel part of something, right? So
yeah. And I guess that's the part of it is like if we're trying to feel like we're part of something, or like how do we feel about that connection with yourself? That's where I keep coming back to. So like my push is always going to be, well, I'll say always for the foreseeable future, my push is likely going to be what's the connection with yourself? What's that? What is that sense of belonging with yourself? Because when you start to feel that, all that other stuff, it's just things that we do. Huh?
So how can people learn more about you, and how can they connect to maybe your workshops or
Oh yeah.
your charity? How
Yeah,
could they
so
connect with you?
yeah, I've got a couple of different Facebook pages that are kicking around out there. There's a personal one and one that I just sort of started as like me as the I would say the more the connective side, like the working, coaching, teaching, whatever it is that wherever I end up. So
Cool.
there's not much on it yet,
Yeah.
but that's on there. And then yeah, I've got a LinkedIn profile. I don't really use it a whole lot, but if you send me a message, I'll find it. Yeah. And
Good.
other than that, like if you know someone that knows me, just reach out for
Awesome.
whatever. Yeah.
Little plug for the charity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fight for life. Like I said, our mission right now is providing resource for active and retired members of Halifax professional firefighters with respects to mental and behavioral health concerns. So we've got a fundraiser calendar we do every year, and we run a lot on grants and donations. Hey, there she is. Yep. And but yeah, and there's if you're feeling generous, there's a donate button that's there, and it's 100% of it goes back into the members, and that's a really good thing that we started. And ultimately, I hope the day comes where funding is readily available in other aspects that our charity is no longer needed.
wow. Thanks for sharing your story today. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
Yeah, you betcha. All right, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this great episode. Learned some nuggets from Michael and his journey. And I couldn't kind of overstate the power of being in your body and knowing yourself, self leadership. Very, very critical. So take his words wisely, and take care of yourself, because we honestly we take care of everyone else, and most of the time over us. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's more important to take care of ourselves so we can lead others in a more powerful and impactful way. So until next time, stay well. All right, that's a wrap.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.